The Enigma of SS Naronic. Long before the Cold War brought tales of submarines like Scorpion wrapped in espionage and technological mishaps, there existed a very different kind of maritime mystery, one born in an era where long-distance communication was limited. The Atlantic Ocean was a treacherous expanse, and entire ships could simply disappear, leaving only rumors behind. This is the haunting chronicle of the SS Naronic, a ship that left harbor with hope and confidence, only to vanish forever, becoming a chilling legend of the sea. The SS Naronic was a British cargo passenger steamship constructed in 1892 by Harland and Wolff, famed shipbuilders who would later go on to build the RMS Titanic. At 470 feet in length, she was designed for transatlantic voyages, combining freight capacity with accommodations for travelers. At the time, she stood among the most advanced vessels afloat, featuring iron hulls, steam propulsion, and embodying the industrial optimism of the late 1800s. On February 11, 1893, Naronic departed from Liverpool, England, destined for New York City. Her manifest listed 74 crewmen and a cargo hold packed with goods and livestock. The journey was intended to be routine, one well within the capabilities of this modern ship. Conditions at departure were favorable, with no indication of any looming threat. Yet, Naronic would never reach her intended port. Somewhere in the frozen stretches of the North Atlantic, she vanished without a hint of what went wrong. At first, her absence raised little concern. Delays at sea were commonplace in the 1890s due to storms, technical setbacks, or unexpected stops to render assistance. But as the days dragged into weeks, hope gave way to fear. Search operations were mounted, but the vastness of the Atlantic and the limited window for rescue made the task nearly impossible. The first sign of the vessel's fate emerged not from the ship itself, but from the ocean. In March 1893, a lifeboat bearing the name Naronic was found adrift near Newfoundland. It was unoccupied, battered by weather, yet otherwise intact, an eerie witness to a disaster lost to the sea. Soon after, a second lifeboat was found, similarly marked and equally empty. It became evident that the crew had abandoned ship. But why? And what ultimately befell them? Then, curious messages began surfacing. In the weeks following Naronic's disappearance, bottles with handwritten letters washed ashore. One, allegedly signed by a sailor named John Allen, claimed the ship had collided with an iceberg and was sinking swiftly. Another anonymous note mentioned the ship being caught in a severe storm. Although these messages stirred public imagination, none were ever authenticated. Many suspected they were fabrications, part of the Victorian era's morbid fascination with shipwrecks and maritime doom. Among the various theories, the iceberg collision remains one of the most credible. February in the North Atlantic meant treacherous, ice-infested waters. Even a minor impact with an iceberg could prove catastrophic. Despite being advanced for her time, the Naronic lacked the radar and iceberg detection systems modern ships rely on. A collision in the dark of night could have left the crew with little warning or time to react. Another plausible scenario suggests mechanical failure. Steamships were still developing in the 1890s, and problems such as boiler explosions, engine faults, or structural weaknesses from improper cargo loading posed serious dangers. Should such a failure occur far from help, the crew may have had no choice but to abandon ship immediately. Weather also cannot be ruled out. The North Atlantic is infamous for sudden, brutal storms and rogue waves, towering, unpredicted walls of water capable of capsizing even large ships. If Naronic was caught in such a phenomenon, it may have been overwhelmed. The presence of lifeboats hints at a hasty evacuation, but the bitter cold and merciless sea likely spelled doom for anyone who made it off the ship. What renders Naronic's tale particularly chilling is the complete lack of closure. Besides the empty lifeboats and the suspect messages, no conclusive trace of the ship has ever been found. No wreckage, no bodies, no floating cargo, nothing. It's as if the Atlantic swallowed her whole, erasing every trace of her existence except the unanswered questions. In the decades since, the Naronic has become a lesser-known maritime mystery, overshadowed by disasters like the Titanic and Lusitania, yet her story continues to captivate maritime historians and enthusiasts of the unexplained. It stands as a stark reminder that, even with the best ships of the age, the ocean remains a force beyond human control. Did the Naronic strike ice in the darkness, her crew scrambling into lifeboats only to freeze or drown? Was she struck down by a rogue wave or torn apart from within by a sudden explosion? Over a century later, these possibilities remain unanswered. Her final resting place is still undiscovered. No wreck found has ever been confirmed to be the Naronic. All that remains is her name, etched into maritime records as one of the many ships lost to the deep. A solemn warning for every vessel that dares to cross the wild North Atlantic. From the vanishing of the SS Naronic, we are left only with silence and a question that time has yet to answer. The sunken Armada of Chuuk Lagoon, in a place where the ocean floor cradles history itself in uneasy silence, lies one of the most haunting underwater graveyards ever discovered. It doesn't tell the tale of a single vessel, but of an entire phantom armada swallowed by the sea. This is the legacy of Chuuk Lagoon, formerly known as Chuuk Lagoon. Tucked away in the central Pacific Ocean, Chuuk is part of the Federated States of Micronesia. On the surface, it appears to be the epitome of paradise. Tropical islands fringed by palms, clear turquoise waters, and vibrant coral reefs bursting with marine life. But beneath this postcard-perfect surface lies something far more somber and eerie. Strewn across the sandy seabed are the rusted carcasses of over 60 ships and hundreds of aircraft, all of which met their doom in one of the most destructive aerial assaults of World War II. Known as the Ghost Fleet of Chuuk Lagoon, this underwater graveyard is not merely a collection of wrecks. It is a preserved moment in history, frozen in time, when destruction descended from the skies. This story begins in the year 1944 during a military campaign dubbed Operation Hailstone. At the time, Chuuk Lagoon was a pivotal naval base for the Japanese, a critical point used to supply and launch operations across the Pacific theater. The lagoon's geography made it naturally fortified. Its barrier reef functioned as a defensive perimeter, shielding the ships moored inside from external threats. But by early 1944, American military intelligence had identified Chuuk as a strategic target. On February 17th, the U.S. launched a powerful offensive. Over 2 days, American aircraft unleashed a relentless barrage upon the lagoon. Warships, cargo vessels, tankers, and submarines were ripped apart by bombs and torpedoes. Planes were destroyed while still on the ground. Storage facilities, supply depots, and warehouses were obliterated. Explosions from ammunition dumps sent firestorms raging across the islands. By the time the assault ceased, Chuuk had transformed into a watery tomb for much of Japan's Pacific Fleet. Ships continued to burn even as they slipped beneath the waves, dragging sailors, supplies, and state secrets down with them. After the war, Chuuk faded from headlines. The world moved on, and the submerged remnants were left undisturbed. But to scuba divers, the site would become legendary, a unique location where history, sorrow, and mystery converge. When the first diving expeditions reached the lagoon in the 1960s, they were met with an astonishing sight. The sunken ships, now overgrown with coral and swarming with marine life, remained strikingly intact. Inside cargo holds, they found tanks, trucks, aircraft components, and even human bones. Some wrecks held fully preserved rooms, medical kits still resting on shelves, uniforms draped from hooks, and personal belongings abandoned in the chaos of evacuation. It felt as if time had stopped at the exact instant of sinking, quietly preserved in the calm, crystalline depths. Diving at Chuuk Lagoon is unlike any ordinary shipwreck experience. These vessels weren't sunk by storms or navigational errors, they were obliterated within hours. Some ships rest perfectly upright, seemingly awaiting orders, while others are tilted at sharp angles, their bows piercing toward the surface and their sterns buried beneath sand. Many were laden with volatile cargo, ammunition, fuel, and exploded catastrophically as they descended, scattering mangled debris across the seabed. The San Francisco Maru, among the lagoon's most iconic wrecks, still harbors its deadly load of tanks, shells, and bombs, clearly visible to divers bold enough to enter its pitch-black interior. But it's not merely the visuals that unsettle visitors, it's the lingering presence. Countless divers recount an eerie sensation of being observed, despite no one else being nearby. Some have reported distant metallic clanging, as though something within the wrecks continues to stir. Others surfaced recounting strange malfunctions in their gear or unexplained currents pulling them off course. While it's easy to dismiss such stories as nerves or coincidence, the consistency of these reports gives rise to something far more chilling. Adding to the unease is the reality that many of the wrecks still house the remains of fallen Japanese sailors. For the families of those who perished, Chuuk Lagoon is not just a diving attraction, it is a sacred war grave. Divers have come across skulls nestled in engine rooms, bones resting in cargo bays, and full skeletons seated at former workstations, frozen in place as if still completing their final tasks. This profound fusion of history and human loss has made Chuuk Lagoon unlike any other site on Earth. It is not merely explored, it is mourned. Divers come not only to witness the wrecks, but to honor those who were lost. Despite its beauty and importance, the lagoon presents many challenges even today. Its remote location means expeditions are both costly and logistically demanding. Meanwhile, time and nature continue to wear away at the wrecks. Coral and marine organisms eat away at once solid hulls, and within a few decades, much of the fleet may collapse into indistinct rust-covered ruins. Efforts to record and preserve these artifacts are ongoing, but the clock is ticking. The mystery of Chuuk Lagoon does not lie in how these ships were destroyed. Operation Hailstone is well documented. Rather, the mystery is what remains. Every shipwreck is a vessel of memories. Each corroded tool, each faded label, every artifact found offers a portal into a past violently interrupted. These were not faceless machines, they were living vessels, manned by men who never expected their final resting place to be under the sea. Some believe that Chuuk Lagoon still conceals secrets, classified papers, prototype weapons, or forgotten technology now buried beneath sand and coral. Others see it as a sobering reminder of the impermanence of might and how even the strongest naval powers can be reduced to silence, rust, and sea life. Regardless of how one views it, Chuuk Lagoon is more than a diving site. It is a chronicle of war, a reflection of human fragility, and a reminder that certain stories, no matter how long buried, never truly disappear. Among the silent wrecks scattered across its floor, history whispers and waits. The final voyage of MV Derbyshire, as we drift quietly away from the looped cams and into broader, more exposed waters, we encounter a very different type of maritime disaster, one devoid of spectral guardians or lingering legends. Here, only shattered remains lie on the ocean floor. This is the tragic tale of the MV Derbyshire, the largest British ship ever claimed by the sea, a tragedy so profound it forced maritime experts to rethink everything they believed about how even the most formidable vessels could succumb to the unrestrained fury of the deep. The MV Derbyshire was an enormous bulk carrier, launched in 1976, purpose-built for transporting oil and iron ore across vast oceans. Stretching more than 965 feet, it dwarfed even the Titanic, an absolute titan of commercial maritime engineering. Operated by the Bibby Line, the Derbyshire stood as a pinnacle of 20th century shipbuilding, an imposing blend of durability, capacity, and innovation, specifically designed to weather the toughest conditions the open ocean could offer. Its mission was simple: deliver vast quantities of cargo worldwide efficiently and securely. In July 1980, the Derbyshire departed from Canada, loaded with over 157,000 tons of iron ore, and set course for Japan. It was a standard voyage, the kind massive carriers routinely completed without incident. The ship's 42 seasoned crew members were joined by 2 spouses who had opted to accompany their partners, an uncommon but not extraordinary arrangement. The journey progressed uneventfully for several weeks until the ship neared the Pacific waters off Okinawa. On September 9, 1980, the Derbyshire encountered Typhoon Orchid, a powerful tempest producing waves in excess of 70 feet and winds exceeding 85 miles per hour. For a vessel of this size, such storms posed significant challenges, but they were far from rare or typically catastrophic. Bulk carriers were built for heavy seas, their immense mass providing natural stability even amid powerful swells. Then, with no warning, the Derbyshire disappeared. Not a single distress message. Not even a hint of mechanical failure. Just sudden, complete silence. When the Derbyshire failed to arrive in Japan as scheduled, rescue operations were swiftly deployed. They searched the expected route thoroughly. All they discovered was a thin film of oil and a few floating fragments, pieces of lifeboats, sections of cargo hatches. No one survived. The complete and sudden loss of such a colossal ship, without any signal or explanation, rocked the maritime community. How could a ship of that scale simply vanish? What force could take her down so quickly that the crew didn't even manage to issue a mayday? For years, the disappearance of the Derbyshire remained an enigma, a maritime riddle that sparked a flood of theories and speculation. Some experts speculated a devastating structural breakdown might have occurred, potentially due to flawed hatch design or the massive strain exerted on a fully laden hull in turbulent seas. Others proposed a far less conventional theory. The ship may have been struck by a rogue wave, a phenomenon long dismissed as sailor myth. But by the 1980s, rogue waves began gaining scientific legitimacy. Satellite photos and oceanic instruments had started documenting these immense, solitary water walls, which can reach over 100 feet and form spontaneously due to complex interactions between storm systems, currents, and swells. A bulk carrier like the Derbyshire, riding low in the water because of her heavy load, would have been highly susceptible if one of these monstrous waves crashed over her bow. Spurred by years of advocacy from the families of the lost, authorities finally launched an in-depth undersea search in the late 1990s. Utilizing advanced sonar and remotely operated vehicles, search teams eventually located the wreck, lying more than 2 miles below the surface. The debris was spread over a vast field, a chaotic mosaic shaped by immense forces that had torn the ship apart. This exploration brought crucial findings to light. The hatch covers, critical barriers meant to seal the cargo holds from seawater, had catastrophically failed. Water had poured in, flooding the holds. As one compartment filled, the imbalance in weight triggered a chain reaction, causing the entire ship to founder in a matter of minutes. But what caused the first breach? Investigators determined that relentless waves from Typhoon Orchid, and perhaps a rogue wave, dealt the decisive blow. Analysis of meteorological and oceanographic data revealed conditions near Okinawa that day were ripe for generating a rogue wave far larger than the rest of the storm surge. Such a wave could have struck the bow like a liquid sledgehammer, collapsing the forward hatches and sending water surging into the holds before the crew could react. With no time for communication, the Derbyshire would have gone under almost instantly, leaving only a few remnants bobbing on the sea and a haunting list of unanswered questions. The Derbyshire disaster led to sweeping reforms in marine safety. Her loss prompted major revisions in how bulk carriers are constructed, requiring stronger hatch covers, more robust internal bulkheads, and enhanced systems to monitor and maintain cargo integrity during rough weather. In that way, the Derbyshire's fate, although tragic, led to progress. Her downfall influenced modern maritime regulations and helped make future vessels more secure. Her legacy is carved into the safety codes that govern ships to this day. Still, the rogue wave theory serves as a sobering reminder. Even the most advanced, meticulously engineered ships can fall prey to the untamed and chaotic power of the sea. Sailors have spoken for centuries of waves appearing out of nowhere, titanic walls of water that rise abruptly, slam into vessels, and vanish just as suddenly. For the Derbyshire, that ancient tale may have become an all-too-real nightmare. Today, the MV Derbyshire lies quietly in the abyssal Pacific, a silent tribute to the souls lost and a stark testament to nature's overwhelming force. Despite our technological strides and better comprehension of rogue waves, one truth remains immutable: the sea always has the final say. And sometimes, all it takes is a single, towering wave to alter history forever. SS President and other maritime enigmas. Let us journey back to a far earlier time, specifically the early 1800s, when steam-powered vessels were still a fresh innovation. The vast Atlantic Ocean then served both as a vital route and a perilous challenge. This tale centers on the SS President, a ship that embarked on its voyage filled with optimism, yet never made it back. The SS President was launched in 1840 and at that time was regarded as one of the most magnificent ships ever constructed. Stretching approximately 245 feet in length, it was a steamship belonging to a new class of ocean-going vessels that combined traditional sails with advanced steam technology. Built in London and operated by the British and American Steam Navigation Company, the President symbolized a new age of speed and comfort for transatlantic travel. It was designed to transport both passengers and mail on the increasingly busy route between Liverpool and New York. Its maiden journey in 1840 was triumphant, earning it a reputation for reliability and elegance as a means to cross the Atlantic. However, beneath its polished image lay unsettling concerns. The President was larger and heavier than many contemporary ships, and its design was experimental. Engineers were still refining how to harmonize steam power with classic sails. Some passengers reported the ship was sluggish in rough seas, sitting low in the water. There was speculation that this design flaw made the vessel vulnerable to flooding during storms. On March 11, 1841, the President departed New York on what would tragically become its last voyage. On board were 136 passengers and crew, along with valuable cargo and important mail destined for Britain. The weather deteriorated as the ship headed directly into a fierce late winter storm, a harsh North Atlantic gale that relentlessly lashed the eastern coastline. The tempest raged for several days. But in an era before dependable radio communication, little was known about the ship's status. When the President failed to arrive in Liverpool as scheduled, worry quickly mounted. Weeks turned into months without any news. Search parties scoured the Atlantic but found no evidence, no lifeboats, no wreckage, no bodies washed ashore. The ship had simply disappeared beneath the ocean waves, leaving only unanswered questions behind. In the years following, the disappearance of the President became one of the earliest great mysteries of the steamship age. Numerous theories emerged about its fate. Some speculated the ship was overwhelmed by the storm, with waves washing over its low decks, flooding its compartments and engines until it sank. Others theorized mechanical failures, as early steamships were complex and unpredictable machines. Issues with boilers, propellers, or rudders could have doomed it. One theory even suggested a collision with an iceberg, although no evidence has ever supported this claim. As decades passed, the legend of the President was eclipsed by later maritime tragedies like the Titanic and the Lusitania. Yet the President still holds a unique place in history as one of the first significant steamship vanishings, a reminder that despite technological advances, the sea's power remains dominant. Even today, the wreck of the SS President has never been discovered. Somewhere deep beneath the North Atlantic waves lies its iron hull, likely deteriorating slowly in the abyss. Without a confirmed location, its final resting place remains a mystery. A ghost ship not drifting lost in fog but preserved in the collective imagination, a legend born the moment it vanished. The fate of the President also became a warning for shipbuilders and engineers of the time. Its disappearance underscored the dangers of rushing innovation, prompting a more cautious approach to design in subsequent years. Only later did bold experimentation return. The story of the SS President reminds us that the ocean wields a unique dominion over vessels and the people who navigate them. When a ship vanishes without a trace, it leaves behind an eerie silence, a void begging to be filled with speculation and imagination. But some maritime mysteries go even further. Some ships do not simply vanish. They reappear, silent, empty, and frozen in time. This brings us to the chilling legend of the Octavius, one of the most haunting ghost ship stories ever recorded. The tale begins in 1761 when the Octavius, a three-masted merchant vessel, set sail from England bound for the Far East. Its journey to China succeeded, and the holds were loaded with precious cargo. Instead of following the usual route back to England, the captain made a daring choice to attempt the legendary Northwest Passage, an Arctic shortcut linking the Pacific and Atlantic Oceans. In the 18th century, this passage was almost mythical, mostly uncharted, and rendered nearly impassable by brutal ice. Had the Octavius succeeded, it would have cut weeks off the return journey and rewritten maritime history. After that, the ship vanished. For 13 years, it was presumed lost without a trace, no wreckage, no distress signals, nothing. Until 1775, when the crew of the whaling ship Herald spotted a vessel drifting lifelessly near Greenland's icy coast. The ship was eerily still. Its sails shredded, its hull coated in frost. As the Herald approached, they realized this was no ordinary derelict, the frozen name Octavius barely visible beneath layers of ice. The whalers boarded the ghost ship expecting abandonment, but found a frozen nightmare instead. The entire crew of the Octavius was still aboard, dead and preserved by the Arctic cold. In the captain's cabin, the captain sat at his desk, a logbook open before him, his hand clutching a pen as if time had stopped mid-sentence. Around him, officers stood frozen in place. It was a perfect, haunting snapshot of death at sea. The logbook revealed the grim truth. The Octavius had attempted the Northwest Passage, but became trapped in ice. Unable to escape, the crew slowly succumbed to freezing temperatures as the ship drifted for over a decade. Terrified, the Herald crew declined to tow or salvage the ship, taking only the logbook before abandoning the frozen vessel to the sea. The Octavius disappeared once more, slipping back into legend. To this day, no wreckage has been found. Some dismiss the story as sailor's myth, a cautionary warning against Arctic exploration. Others believe it holds a kernel of truth, a stark reminder of the sea's merciless nature and how it sometimes locks its secrets in ice. From this chilling ghost ship, we shift to a vastly different maritime graveyard, not a single vessel, but an entire fleet resting beneath the ocean floor, a time capsule of war frozen in the Pacific depths. This is the story of Chuuk Lagoon, a haunting underwater cemetery where dozens of ships, planes, and countless lives were swallowed in one devastating day, creating one of the most eerie maritime resting places on Earth. Across the depths of Chuuk Lagoon, where history rests frozen beneath the warm Pacific waters, we now turn to a far colder and more contemporary enigma, one that continues to ignite debate and doubt even today. This is the account of the USS Scorpion, a cutting-edge nuclear submarine that vanished somewhere in the Atlantic Ocean during the peak of the Cold War, leaving behind only scattered wreckage and a trail of unresolved questions. The USS Scorpion belonged to the Skipjack-class nuclear submarines and was commissioned by the U.S. Navy in 1960. Measuring 252 feet in length, it was capable of diving to extraordinary depths and armed with nuclear torpedoes as well as state-of-the-art surveillance systems. It stood as a pinnacle of Cold War naval technology and engineering. Built to track Soviet submarines, monitor enemy activities, and if necessary, deliver a powerful strike from beneath the ocean's surface, the Scorpion carried a crew of 99 men and patrolled the seas as part of America's expanding underwater fleet, a symbol of stealth, strength, and technological superiority. By the late 1960s, however, the Scorpion was showing signs of aging. Compared to the newer subs entering service, it was slightly outdated and had even missed its scheduled overhaul because the Navy urgently needed all operational vessels. Despite this, on May 1968, the Scorpion set off on a routine patrol mission. Departing from its home port in Norfolk, Virginia, it was tasked with monitoring Soviet naval activity near the Azores. The mission appeared ordinary, and the experienced crew was confident it would conclude without incident. On May 21, 1968, the Scorpion sent a routine radio transmission to Naval Command. Everything seemed normal, with no indication of trouble, mechanical failure, or distress, no warning that this submarine would soon vanish without a trace. However, when it failed to report back as scheduled only hours later, a search was immediately launched. According to the Navy's official investigation, the catastrophe resulted from a massive internal explosion, most likely caused by a malfunctioning torpedo that set off a chain reaction, sinking the sub in minutes. The prevailing theory suggested one of the Scorpion's torpedoes detonated inside its tube, perhaps due to a defective battery or an accidental firing sequence, triggering rapid flooding and the vessel's demise. Yet, many were skeptical of this official explanation. Rumors and alternative theories surfaced almost immediately. Some pointed to the timing of the Scorpion's disappearance, May 1968, only days after the mysterious loss of the Soviet submarine K-129 in the Pacific. Was the Scorpion deliberately targeted as retaliation for secret U.S. operations? Could there have been a covert underwater confrontation between American and Soviet subs, which both sides concealed to prevent escalating Cold War tensions? Documents declassified decades later revealed the Scorpion was monitoring a group of Soviet ships near the Azores shortly before vanishing, further fueling speculation that it might have been ambushed. Others focused on known mechanical problems. Maintenance logs showed persistent leaks, issues with the propeller shaft, and an unreliable emergency blow system. Missing its scheduled overhaul, critics argued, left the vessel vulnerable to catastrophic failure. Some experts believe a mechanical breakdown, perhaps involving the reactor or propulsion systems, led to flooding and an uncontrollable plunge to crushing depths. While less sensational than espionage conspiracies, this explanation is considered by many as the most plausible cause. However, the wreckage itself raised troubling questions. Analysis of the damage suggested it did not perfectly align with the Navy's torpedo explosion theory. The debris field, hull deformation, and how parts of the submarine fractured pointed to a more complicated sequence, possibly a catastrophic failure followed by a rapid dive beyond the sub's crushed depth. Others detected damage patterns consistent with an external explosion, an unlikely yet possible scenario if the Scorpion encountered an enemy craft or an undetected underwater mine. Adding to the mystery, crew members reportedly voiced concerns about the sub's condition before departing Norfolk. Some sailors privately admitted unease about its aging state and maintenance issues, fearing it was unsafe to sail. One crewman supposedly left a letter for his family expressing worries that the Scorpion might never return home. Today, the fate of the USS Scorpion remains a haunting enigma. The official explanation of tragic mechanical failure does not satisfy everyone. The Cold War backdrop, the ominous final mission, and the wreck's disturbing condition leave room for doubt, conjecture, and suspicion. Conspiracy theorists continue to argue the Scorpion was a casualty of secret Cold War hostilities, a victim of an underwater shadow war both sides refuse to acknowledge. Others view it as a tragic example of human error and the risks of pushing aging technology beyond its limits. One truth remains certain. The story of the Scorpion serves as a chilling reminder of how little we truly understand about the deep ocean's mysteries. Whether destroyed by its own weaponry, enemy action, or the unforgiving depths, its shattered remains lie in silent tribute to the 99 sailors who vanished beneath the waves, and to a puzzle that may never be conclusively solved.